Then Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and curing every disease and every sickness. When Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion for them, because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore, ask the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest." Then Jesus summoned his 12 disciples and gave them authority over unclean spirits, to cast them out and to cure every disease and every sickness. These are the names of the 12 apostles. First Simon, also known as Peter, and his brother Andrew. James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. Philip and Bartholomew. Thomas and Matthew the tax collector. James, son of Alphaeus and Thaddeus. Simon the Cananean, and Judas Iscariot, the one who betrayed him. These 12 Jesus sent out with the following instructions: "Go nowhere among the Gentiles, and enter no town of the Samaritans, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. As you go, proclaim the good news. The kingdom of heaven has come near. Cure the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. You received without payment, give without payment." This is a passage that I remember preaching from not too long ago. It stands out to me because not the words or the placement, but the emotion I felt like Jesus was feeling, and that I could feel the same things. I felt like not only was I like Jesus, but Jesus was like me. When I read the words, when he looked out to the crowds and had compassion for them and saw the faces of the congregation that had gathered that morning, I was feeling compassionate myself. I felt this unbelievable sense of care and empathy for those who had gathered in the sanctuary that morning. For Jesus, when he felt this feeling, instead of continuing to only gather groups himself, he instead brought together a group of people who would go and find those very people for whom he had compassion. The first graduating class of Jesus' discipleship school were those who had as many needs as they had skills. Their resume only names their names and none of their achievements, only their relationships and their future failings, and the reason they shouldn't be included. In this list, I hear Maya Angelou quote, "Do the best you can until you know better, and then when you know better, do better." It appears that the honor of their selection was that they were teachable people, those who were willing to find others who needed help. And instead of blaming them for getting themselves into their own messes, instead of telling them they had a lack of work ethic or bad faith, these folks were able to come past traditions and learn binders in order to pour the abundant grace of God on those they were able to find, and let them know that they would not be forgotten or ignored. They were motivated by the compassion Jesus felt, and a need for justice and mercy to prevail in a world that was often too cold, narcissistic, and self-righteous. It's changed quite a bit, and we have instead had buildings in which to gather, places where we've organized ministries of compassion and justice and witness, places where we've celebrated joyous occasions and mourned together in the sorrow that has been overwhelming. No wonder we think of these buildings as our church home. It's difficult to go without Sunday worship in person, in community. Still, worship is being held in different ways. Teaching is being done. The good news is being shared. And it's not being done with or by those who have found the church waiting inside a building. It is the case like during the church's very beginning, where ministers and apostles and teachers and witnesses are being sent out to find you and to find everyone else whom this message and others messages like it have found. I wish I had you gathered together to be able to look you in the eye and tell you that I feel for you, that I know the angst and the pain because I'm hurting. I'm lost and wandering. I'm sad and angry and confused. I'm overwhelmed with all the information being offered about COVID-19, some of it contradictory. I'm overwhelmed by the terrifying images of murders of African American people, especially knowing that such violent measures escalate from the stepping off point of things of such little value. I'd also tell you that it irritates me that when I misspell the word COVID, my computer does not correctly autocorrect it like it so easily does when I misspell autocorrect, like I just did when I wrote this. It irritates me that months into this mess, there is still a squiggly line underneath the word COVID, as if it must be some unknown or mistaken thing. Though not how I would prefer to do it. I've gone ahead and told you anyway. The church has come to you and has found you. And the sense that I know it is reaching you and that with a click or a word you will also share it is comforting. Last week my daughter in Texas had called to talk as she was driving home. She asked me to wait, and I could hear her telling someone to come to the food pantry she serves, to come on a certain day, and that they also had diapers and formula available. And when she got back to our conversation, I asked what was going on, and she told me that she carries a card with her with the information about the food pantry, and that this woman was at a traffic light with a sign asking for help. And since they were pretty close to the food pantry at Jewish Family Services where she works, my daughter stopped to show her how and where she could find help, where she and her children could be found. The church will find you. It found me. The deluge of worries that flood over us is nothing compared to the love of God who pulls us to safety. God has made a name for God's self by taking circumstances like these and bringing goodness and mercy and renewal into them. God thrives during times such as these. Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. The church will find you. The church will find you. And you will be the one who points out how that one in need can also be found. I'd invite you to join together in a time of prayer and would ask that you would participate in a bidding prayer. I will say some words of prayer and then say the words, loving God, followed by you saying, make us into a blessing. I'll pray, loving God, and pause, and you will say, make us into a blessing. Don't fear if you forget, because the words will pop up onto the screen. Let's pray. For those who have power without the wisdom to use it well, and for those who have wisdom without the power to apply it, loving God, make us into a blessing. for people who want to learn but have no teacher, and some who have much to teach but no one will listen to them, loving God. For those who have been forced to retire too early, and for those who are overworked and long for retirement, loving God. For some people who are famous yet long for some privacy, and some who are lonely and long for recognition and company, loving God. For those who are too tender-hearted and need to be toughened, and for those who are tough and need to be made gentle, loving God. For the wounded and diseased who have inadequate care, and for the pampered who turn ill health into an obsession, loving God. For people who are dying with no one to mourn them, and for those who mourn with no one to comfort them, loving God. For all who remain cheerful in the midst of poverty and grave handicap, and for some who are disgruntled in spite of plenty and good health, loving God. Holy friend, you love all as one human family, and you deal with us individually as if we were your only child. Please give to us your generous and practical spirit so that our prayers may be converted into deeds day by day, through Jesus Christ our Redeemer. Amen.